I thank you for letting me be here to help you honor the man who started it all, Christopher Columbus.
Doing this passionate move of removing the statue. We don't even say his name anymore because it's gone.
Who was Christopher Columbus? Was he a hero or a villain? Let's find out. Every Columbus Day is the same. Christopher Columbus is attacked. His statues are desecrated. More states and cities change Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day, or Native Americans Day, and left-wing professors smear the man who discovered America in 1492. But why is Columbus attacked so much? Why is he vilified instead of honored? In this fight back, we're going to debunk the 10 most common lies about Christopher Columbus. Myth 1. Columbus was sailing to prove the world was round. Everyone in Columbus's time knew the Earth was a sphere. This fact was known since antiquity. However, scholars did disagree about its size, but based on the known world, Columbus underestimated it by 1/4. In the late 19th century, enemies of Christianity spread the lie that medieval man believed in a flat Earth. They claimed that since people in Columbus's time were religious, they were therefore crude and ignorant. They accused the church of being the enemy of science, but Christopher Columbus, a deeply religious man, would be the first to disagree. Myth 2. The Indians lived in peace and harmony, ruined by Columbus. History tells us otherwise. War, slavery, cannibalism, and sexual immorality were all common practices among the Indians. As the Spanish would later find out, human sacrifice and infanticide were the norm among other Indians, like the Aztecs. The Aztecs slaughtered upwards of 20,000 in a single day, killing many of their enemies by removing their still-beating hearts. On Columbus's second voyage, he brought the first of many Catholic missionaries. These men tried to convert the Indians from their barbaric pagan practices. Many missionaries suffered martyrdom to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ.
But because they needed to find more gold, someone to work the plantations, they thus began the great African slave trade.
Myth 3. Columbus brought slavery to the New World. Slavery was widely practiced by the Indians when Columbus arrived. Reading Columbus's log, it's clear he insisted on the fair treatment of the Indians. Upon his first encounter with the natives on San Salvador, Columbus writes, "I recognized that they were people who would be better freed from error and converted to our holy faith by love than by force." The mass importation and subjugation of Africans didn't begin until long after Columbus's death. Myth 4. Columbus was responsible for genocide, deliberately wiping out millions.
And set in motion the greatest genocide known in human history.
Genocide is defined as the deliberate, systematic, and widespread extermination of a national, racial, religious, or ethnic group. Many Indians did die in the initial contact with Europeans, but any talk of deliberate extermination on the part of Columbus is a lie. Columbus always treated the natives fairly, even when some of his contemporaries didn't. Indian conquests among themselves had been going on long before the arrival of the Spanish. Columbus actually helped to establish the foundations for the fair treatment of the conquered. Myth 5. Columbus and his men deliberately spread disease. Wait, the same people who claimed that Columbus thought the world was flat now credit him with knowing all about infectious diseases? Well, the truth is no one knew what a germ was until Louis Pasteur discovered them in 1870. It's at least 350 years after Columbus. There's no way Columbus and his contemporaries could have deliberately spread diseases they themselves didn't understand. Myth 6. Columbus was a philanderer. This allegation was first made 200 years after Columbus's death, and it's been repeated ad nauseum ever since. Columbus had jealous rivals who would have taken advantage of any sign of marital impropriety to defame him. But on this point, however, his enemies are silent for once. Columbus's first wife died shortly after the birth of his first son, Diego, in 1477. After he moved to Spain, he married Beatriz de Arana in 1487. His son Fernando was born the following year, and all evidence indicates that Beatriz de Arana was Columbus's lawfully wedded wife. Some of her relatives even served aboard Columbus's ships. Columbus lived out the Catholic Church's teaching on chastity in one state in life. In Columbus's own words, sins of impurity would consign souls to eternal punishment. Myth 7. Columbus didn't discover anything. The Vikings did. Before Columbus, the Vikings did visit these lands, but to discover means to uncover or make known. The illiterate Vikings never wrote about or told others of their travels. Knowledge of cartography, navigation, and wind patterns in America didn't exist until Columbus came and discovered. The Indians were ignorant of the extent of the lands they occupied and the world at large. Columbus deserves credit for establishing a lasting contact between the continents. On his third and fourth voyages, Columbus wrote about finding something else new. He spent his last voyage trying to find a passage between North and South America. Myth 8. What Columbus did was nothing special. Only after Columbus opened the way did others have the courage to follow. What Columbus did was risky. Not only did he spend years finding money for the voyage, but he overcame great obstacles, and he never gave up. Columbus believed it was his God-given mission to explore new lands and bring the light of the gospel. His first prayer on reaching America was, "O Lord, eternal and omnipotent God, Thou hast by Thy holy word created the heavens, the earth, and the sea. Blessed and glorified be Thy name. Praised be Thy majesty, who hast deigned that by means of Thy unworthy servant, Thy sacred name should be acknowledged and made known in this new quarter of the world." Myth 9. Columbus was only sailing to become wealthy. Columbus did seek gold and other valuables, but he didn't do it for personal gain. After he founded La Navidad on the island of Hispaniola on December 25, 1492, he writes, "I have already petitioned your highnesses to see that all the profits of my enterprise should be spent on the conquest of Jerusalem." The Muslims were finally pushed out of Spain in 1492, and Columbus's greatest unfulfilled desire was to reclaim Jerusalem and the Holy Land, where Christ shed his most precious blood. Historian George Grant concludes, Christopher Columbus wasn't sailing to find a new world, but to find a way to rescue the old. Myth 10. Columbus died a pauper in a Spanish prison. Columbus had considerable wealth as he approached death. On May 20th, 1506, the vigil of the Ascension, Columbus, a third-order Franciscan, lay on his deathbed in his apartment at Valladolid. He was surrounded by his fellow Franciscans and his sons. As the friars chanted Compline, his last words echoed those of Christ on the cross. In manus tuos, Domine, commendo spiritum meum. Into thy hands, O Lord, I commend my spirit.
So why is Columbus treated so unfairly today? Because the left scorns Christianity and mocks the achievements of Western civilization.
We should have no qualms about celebrating Columbus Day. We need to fight back and honor this great man who spread the gospel and civilized a hemisphere.
After Columbus's first voyage, he wrote a letter that still gives us the best reason to continue celebrating. Let Christ rejoice upon earth as he does in heaven, to witness the coming salvation of so many people, heretofore given over to perdition. Let us rejoice for the exaltation of our faith, as well as for the augmentation of our temporal prosperity, in which not only Spain, but all Christendom shall participate. Thanks so much for watching, and God bless Christopher Columbus.
Good luck, God bless you, and God bless this precious land of ours found by Christopher Columbus. Thank you all very much.